Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Adriana Rose. Welcome to Life is But a Dri podcast. I am so excited to be finally starting this podcast. I've been talking about it forever. I've been wanting to do this. And I'm done with the perfectionism. This mic, it's not even working. It will next time. But as of right now, I'm just ready to get started. I'm ready to talk to you guys. I'm ready to share my message because I have a powerful one. And I'm going to take this first episode, you know, say hi, for have you guys, just get to know me a little bit, why I'm here, what my vision is. In this episode, I'm going to be taking you guys into my world, into my brain, what I like to talk about, what I be thinking about, and what I'm just excited to share with all of you and start conversations, because I love talking. I love talking to myself, but what I really love is connecting with you guys, connecting with people, hearing your guys' opinions, what you guys are thinking about specific topics, and hearing your experiences because those hold a lot of power. They hold a lot of um, opportunities for us to grow and to, you know, become one. We'll say that. So, a little bit about me. I am from Denver, Colorado, born and raised. I'm still here. I love traveling. I love experiencing different places. Everyone loves traveling. Everyone loves experiencing new things. But that's something that I am super ecstatic about. I am slacking and I do not have my passport yet, but we are working on it. So I've only been in the US. Hawaii is my favorite state I've been to so far. If you haven't been to Hawaii, definitely do that. If you guys want any story times, tips for Hawaii, let your girl know. But yes, a little bit about me, a little bit about my story. I did not come into this world alone. I am a twin. Fun fact, I have a twin brother. He is an amazing photographer. I do photography as well. Both creatives. He's literally the boy version of me. um, and on that topic, a boy version of me, I actually am a trans woman. If you didn't know, you know now. And that is something that I hid for a really, really long time. I grew up as a little boy. That's so weird to say. But okay, I'm gonna be vulnerable and just be open because that's the type of world I want to live in. So, yes, I grew up as a little boy with my twin brother, my bestie, my best friend, and it was up until high school, going into my junior year, when I was 16 years old, that's when I decided to transition and become the beautiful goddess that you see here today. So, that is going to be a part of my story and what I bring up. And for a long time, I didn't want to share that part of me. I thought it wasn't important. I didn't want that to be all that I was known for. But I get to realize that I haven't been the most proud woman, the most proud trans woman. And I do have a little bit of a range of different views regarding my trans identity. You know, I do not deem myself a woman. I deem myself a trans woman. And I know that there's different opinions when it comes to identity and stuff like that, but I'm making it very clear where I stand, and that is me being for real, and that I am a trans woman, not a cis-born woman, but someone who is of a specific experience, and I'm willing to share that in order to relate to people, to connect with people, and to not hide that side of myself because I feel like it's a very powerful message to share. So I'm definitely going to be doing that, talking about that. Growing up, I grew up with a single mom, go mom, love my mom Holly. I've always been a super creative person, always was a creative kid, always loved clothes, always loved fashion, always loved music, anything in the creative realm. I was obsessed with. And that has led me to who I am today. Growing up, I loved photography ever since I was little. I had my mom's little Canon, little tiny digital camera, and I would take hundreds and hundreds of photos. And um, that's when it kind of led me into my young teen years when I started taking portrait photography, started shooting my friends, and that just kind of evolved into um, shooting for models. And then as I met models, they encouraged me to start modeling. And yeah, since then I've done modeling. I've done mostly runway, and yeah, I just had a blast. In high school, I did cheer and I was on the step team on both varsity teams. Because, you know, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it 100%. Am I right? So, yeah, super fun time in my life. I love being a part of a team, a part of a community, a group of people who's super passionate. Nowadays, I'm doing this amazing program on emotional intelligence and leadership training, and that's been something I've been really happy about, excited about, being a part of a team. And it's literally a workshop where you come into emotional awareness, you come into your full potential as a leader of your own life, spreading that to others, and 10 out of 10. So that's kind of what I've been up to. That's kind of been my little passions throughout life. One big lesson that I learned at a young age in my life is the power of authenticity and why it's so important when it comes to living your best life. And, you know, that did start when I realized that I wasn't being an authentic person. I wasn't moving authentically. I wasn't being authentic. And that really does come to the point in time before my transition. So, growing up, I grew up with a Roman Catholic religious family. Not in my immediate family exactly, but we did have that, you know, second outside source, our family, who did kind of subconsciously put a lot of religious pressure on my immediate household, and that led me to think at a very young age, around 8, 9 years old, I had come to consciousness on what being trans was, what transitioning was, and I just thought that was not an option for me. I was like, no, I'm going to be ostracized. I'm going to be discarded. I'm going to be disowned by my family, and it's going to be awkward. It's going to be so weird. People are going to think I'm a freak. People are going to, you know, I was just so in my head with limiting beliefs, and, you know, very very valid emotions to have. Um, but from then on, I had just decided to go in the total opposite direction. I had, you know, my little swag, snapback stage, you know, when Tumblr was a big thing. And I just was pouring into a ideal version of whatever it was at the time for a teenage boy. And I just wanted to be loved. I just wanted to be liked, and I just wasn't being authentic. And it really showed, and it was clocked always. You know, anytime I feel like you aren't authentic in this world and you don't show up that way, people notice, and it is noticeable. And, you know, that's something that I've learned, is that authenticity is so important. And, you know, because growing up, starting at a very young age, I always loved and gravitated towards the feminine energy, different feminine things, stereotypical feminine things. You know, I've always loved Barbies. I was a brat, little girl, little boy, technically. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say I'm not scared. um, and, you know, I just love fashion. I loved like all that stereotypical girly stuff. And, you know, me getting to the topic of that all being very socially constructed is going to be a whole other episode. in my views on that. But, at the end of the day, I was just very in touch with my feminine energy. I remember going into kindergarten, not knowing anything about, people being so quick to label people, gay, faggot, etc., etc. Like, just all the different things when people experience things that are different from what they've known. And, from a young age, I honestly felt that it was unsafe for me to be authentic and that it was unsafe for me to be myself and have those interests. So growing up, I was pretty quiet, but I did like attention when it was controlled by me. I've always loved dressing nice, always loved dressing for the occasion. Um, and I'm an Enneagram type 4. And that is another thing I'm going to be talking about on this podcast is Enneagram personality types, because if you haven't heard about them, super interesting. It's called a personality type, but I don't like to label that as my personality. I rather review it as a trauma response or a result of beliefs based off of what your childhood experience was. There's 9 different personality types. We'll get more deep into that another time, but long story short, didn't feel like I had a strong connection to either one of my parents. I felt very different from my family, and I identified with that. And I just always made the story in my head that I'm different. I need to stand out in some way, whatnot, whatnot. And so I always loved dressing up. I was shy though, so that was my way of expressing myself. That's how I showed off who I was. I was always a very friendly person, always was a friendly kid, and so I had friends, but I definitely paid attention to a lot of the background noise, anything that came from, you know, mostly little boys, saying, oh, he's gay, he's a faggot, blah, 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 blah. Just all those little tiny bullying antics, that now I realize and I admit that that was bullying. Before I would never admit that I was bullied. I was too proud because it was never super direct, but I definitely noticed and I definitely had a conceptualization of the difference between how girls would treat me and how boys would treat me. That led me to just suppressing who I naturally authentically was. I always tell people I came out of my mom in heels, okay? I've always been attracted to anything of the feminine energy, anything of stereotypical feminine things. That's just always what I gravitated towards. So I definitely toned that down as I got older, going into my middle school years, going into my high school years. That's honestly when things started to shift. I had a very strong group of friends, a very supportive, very loving group of friends that honestly made me feel like I could take on the world. And I'm so grateful for that. And I never take it for granted. I still have those friends. Super grateful to have found my fur family in high school. I know a lot of people don't have the best high school experience, but I honestly had a really amazing high school experience. And even amidst transitioning midway through my high school experience, it was great. It was those last 2 years where I really stepped into my authenticity and I was real with myself and I shared who I actually wanted to be and what had me feeling confident to people. And that totally just shifted my whole perspective on life, my whole perspective of high school. I made the most out of it and I had a blast and I'm so grateful for that. I feel like once I transitioned, that's when my whole world kind of started to shift. I just gained so much confidence. That's when I really started taking my photography seriously. That's when I started taking modeling seriously. And I just ended up having such a blast. And, like I said, I don't claim womanhood, but I do claim the feminine experience. When you go traveling with a group of pretty young girls, you have a lot of opportunities come to you. You have a lot of different experiences that maybe a lot of people don't experience when they are in their feminine energy. And I'm just very grateful for it and to be surrounded by friends who are also in that energy and supports that. And I just have a blast all the time. The old version of me thought that I had to perform and that I had to be a specific way in order to be loved. But now I know that the best thing I can do for myself, for the longevity of my relationships, for the longevity of my relationship with myself, is that I get to be authentic and I get to be real, or else I'm going to feel it. The whole world's going to feel it. And it's just going to be a waste of time. If we know deep down that, because it makes sense, if we're authentic to ourselves, that we're going to be happy. And if that's a correct answer, then why wait? And it does take practice. I feel like even now we still wear a lot of masks. We still decide to show up in specific ways, and we still only show certain things and aspects of our life. But I'm working on breaking those barriers down, being open, being vulnerable, because life is too short to be wearing masks. Life is too short to not connect with people authentically. We have too much of that in this world going on. And this is a safe space for us to be real, for us to be authentic. Just like I feel like a lot of other podcasts say, but here's another one. We're throwing it out there and we're going to be real here. So I'm going to be the source of that. I'm going to be authentic so then you guys feel like you can be authentic as well. So I created Life is But a Dri podcast because I really wanted to create a space where we can just talk about everything and anything. I specifically want to bring the gap between, the modern dating ideals that we are living in now. I'm thinking about Shira 7, get that money girl, spend his wallet, make his pockets hurt type energy. Because I love that. And that is an amazing energy to come from. But I also find a lot of inspiration from like Sadia Psychology. If you guys don't know her, love her. Amazing psychologist, who really talks about modern dating and how a lot of it is trauma responses and how we are so over stimulated that we're always wanting constant gratifications, and we put these super high expectations on people, and when we don't meet them, we discard them and throw them away and just keep on going, swiping and just not stopping and really building those genuine connections. And I'm someone who has learned so much from Shira 7 and has built my confidence. And she has helped me build my confidence in such an extraordinary, beautiful way. But I do acknowledge that sometimes she might be coming a little bit from lack, a little bit from non-genuine connections. And to think that you can't have that or that all men are the same, that is a limiting belief. That is a limiting belief. And, just think about the type of person that you are and if what you're attracting into your life, what type of relationships do you continue to put yourself in and you end up not getting the result that you truly want? Are you putting yourself in situations or relationships that are doomed to end? Where's that coming from? We have the opportunity to reflect and realize where that's coming from. And is that going to support you in the long, happy, healthy, relationship-filled life that you want? Does that make sense? So I really am trying to bring those gaps together and, be in your feminine energy. Feel empowered, have those boundaries, know what you want out of a relationship, but let's come from a healthy, healed place. So we're not continuing to beat down people's pain bodies. We're not provoking different trauma responses. We're not provoking pain in people. We're not provoking fear. We're not provoking insecurities. Because why would you want to do that? Would you want someone to do that to you? Would you want people to provoke that in you? That's not a good feeling. At least not to the point where you're able to take it and be responsible and figure out where that comes from and then transform that into a something that hinders you, but something that you have processed and realized and can then use to empower you. I've always been obsessed with how the human brain works, why people do the things that they do, why they act the way that they act, all that stuff, why people self-sabotage, why people, create these different stories in their head that limits them and where that comes from and, all stuff like that. I'm really interested into the Enneagram personality types, which I will definitely be talking more about, which I am starting to move away from calling it personality types because I do acknowledge now that they're just kind of, trauma responses that our ego attaches to. But I could go on and on about stuff like that, so we'll definitely be talking about that. I'm just super interested into human behavior, human consciousness, all that good stuff. The more I've learned, the more I've realized on how much we need tools in order for us to have the best life that we deserve and that we want and that we've dreamt about our whole lives. We can't just move into that in a switch. We get to figure out what tools we get to have in our mental toolbox in order to get us from point A to point B, to break down this limiting belief, to break down that stereotype in our head, to break down, whatever the case may be. So this podcast is for all the girls, all the guys, everybody who is done with settling, who is done with being their worst enemy. As corny as it may sound, this podcast is for the people who want to reclaim their power, because we all had it at some point, but something along the way had led us to forget about that. Led us to forget our most authentic, truest selves that is just open to everything and isn't worried about what mask they're wearing or how they come across on social media or what type of car they drive or what kind of bag they're carrying, what kind of shoes they're wearing. This is for people who are looking to get to the core of it, to get to where those things are coming up in your mind that are keeping you from the life that you want. So this podcast is for the girls who want to come into their feminine energy. Maybe you don't even know what that looks like. And maybe you're not getting the results, the type of relationships that you want. Maybe you're not going to bed at night feeling like the way that you want to feel, being the way that you want to be, and you feel like you still have to be hard. You feel like you still have to be over controlling. You still feel like you have to come from a place that isn't making you happy. And we're going to get to uncover that and figure out what's blocking you and how to really come into that feminine energy. This podcast is also for my trans women who are looking for someone to look to for different information. My experience, what's worked for me and has led me to easily move and integrate into society in a positive, inspiring way, not in a way that pushes people away or leads people to be confused, self-conscious of your presence. Really learning how to come into your feminine energy, or if you're a trans man, coming into that masculine energy. Even my men out there, my cis men, masculine men to my flamboyant men, this is for you guys as well to really come into that emotional intelligence and what that actually looks like, how to come into that energy where you become the leader that you want, you become the man that you needed when you were young, and to just generate the life that you want, the life of your dreams, the one that you're proud of. I'll be bringing on guests who are a part of my everyday life, guests who I know have mastery in whatever topic we're talking about, and some of my best friends, some of my family members even. I want to have my great grandma on this podcast because that woman is hilarious. She is so aware and conscious that we deserve to hear her words and share that with the whole world. Some episodes might feel like healing, some episodes might feel like some hype, but regardless, every episode is going to feel like you're at home, that you're comfortable, and you have a space to be real and to be authentic. So if you're listening right now, I just want to say thank you. I do not take it lightly. You are why I'm here. I'm here to share my voice and to empower everyone, to remind people of what their potential is, and that's unlimited potential. You have zero limits when it comes to your life and what you're capable of coming into. And I'm going to remind you that in case no one in your life is telling you that, in case no one in your life is hyping you up, in case no one in your life is making you feel like you can do anything, because you literally can. You literally can. It sounds corny. I love corn. Do you like corn? Because we're going to get really corny on here, okay? I want you to walk away with each episode feeling more powerful, feeling motivated, feeling like you've heard a different perspective, that you've learned something, and more like the highest version of you. Being authentic is the highest version of you. And always remember that this is a journey that we're doing together. So, what better way to become friends than to start this journey side by side, together, making a difference. So if this first episode spoke to you, let me know. Comment, share, send it to your girls, send it to your group chat, send it to your boys. Let's support each other. I'm here to support you guys, so I really appreciate it if you guys support me in any way. And please, I am open to suggestions. I am open to topics. If you guys want to hear something, if you guys want a Q&A episode, ask me anything. Find me on my socials. My Instagram is _Adriana_. My TikTok is _Adriana_. And this podcast is Life is But a Dri on my YouTube channel, Adriana Rose. I'll be posting this on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. And let's see where this takes us. Let's see where else this spreads. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Give me those episode recommendations. Tell me what landed with you with this episode. Tell me what you still want to know about me. What was your most surprising fact that you learned about me? Let's just talk. Let's have conversations. That's what this is for. So thank you guys again. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. First episode. So I was thinking what would be cute for this first episode, and I actually got a bottle of wine. I'm not a big drinker, but I just thought it'd be cute. I'm at my brother's apartment, and he is still moving in and stuff. He doesn't have wine glasses yet, so we just got this little plastic cup. It's pink, so it's perfect. Cheers to the first episode of Life is But a Dri. Sweet, just like me. So when I was coming up with my podcast name, I was just in a stage of overthinking it. And my brother came up with the beautiful idea, Life is But a Dri. And what this podcast name means to me is, life is literally a dream. Life is what you make it. Life is what you decide it is. And me, as the dream that I am, I am in full embodiment of that. Life is but a Dri. It is what you make of it. I create my own life. I create my dream. I am living my dream. I am building my dream. I am manifesting it. I am putting it out there. So life is literally up to me. Life is but a Dri.